This is my graduation photo from nursing school in 1993. Look at that face. So much promise, so much potential, so much hope for the future. And I still have that hope. But let's be honest, our jobs are tough, particularly with leading during times like these. Leadership asks more today than ever before of us, and it needs more resilience, it needs more decisiveness from us, it needs more stamina. But what I want to talk about is something that we typically don't address when it comes to leadership. We must ask ourselves a really poignant question as leaders. Does love belong in leading? Most people will instinctively say yes. And the obvious answer is, of course it does. But the real question is, have we taken the time to unpack what that means? And most importantly, what does love look like in leadership practice? We often say we love what we do, but do we truly love the people that we lead? And if we do, how do we show love? How do they know? This is important because leadership has a way of hardening us, and it really is good for us to have this heart to heart. So, who are the leaders in this room? Raise your hands. Yeah, a number of you. Much respect. And when it comes to what you're responsible for, the outcomes, the budgets, the staffing, the systems, you learn to brace yourself for impact. You close your heart just enough to survive the next difficult decision or task. And sometimes, without even realizing it, your heart never makes it into rooms where you're making tough decisions, making hard calls, having hard conversations. I learned that the hard way. Several years ago, when I was a chief nursing officer, I had to implement a reduction in force strategy. Now, a lot of you that have been in this space know what that really means. It means that you're essentially laying people off. And softening the term or dressing it up doesn't make that work any easier. Because the reality is, when you do that activity, it's about eliminating positions held by real people impacting real lives. So I had my script. Human resources was in the room. I had already delivered this message 5 times earlier, so I should have a rhythm by now. And then a gentleman named Kwaku entered the room, and I was forever changed. And ashamedly, I'll admit, that meeting was the first time I had ever met him. So I did what we were trained to do in those types of circumstances. I went straight to my script and followed the process. Kwaku, unfortunately, today is your last day. We'll pay you through the end of the month. Please gather your belongings when you get back to your department. There's an employee assistance program. Here's a number to call if you need any assistance or support. Please don't cause any disruptions as you go back to the unit to make sure that you're not causing any problems and follow the code of conduct. And then something stopped me. Kwaku was not reacting the way the others did prior to him. He wasn't angry. He didn't seem devastated. He was poised. And he was actually grace-giving. He told me he understood how hard this must be for me. He said that he felt for me having to deliver this type of news. He acknowledged that I was in a tough spot. And in that moment, the person being laid off was comforting the person laying him off. And I realized that my heart wasn't in this room. Where was my love and compassion? That changed everything. So I went off script. I decided to learn who Kwaku was. Now, I told you HR was in the room, right? And they're looking at me, giving me signals like, abort, abort, and I'm totally ignoring them. Kwaku tells me he's a physician in his home country. He came to the US 5 years ago, prior to, and he had been waiting to pass his boards. Until then, he was working at our organization, a hospital, as a cardiology tech, and he was remotely reading strips for abnormalities. And then he told me that during his time as a physician owning a practice, he had to sit on the side of the table that I was sitting on to deliver similar news to other people. That's why he was empathetic. That moment forced me to confront a truth. I wasn't leading fully because my heart wasn't in it. I was actually managing a moment and not honoring a person. This is when the Leadfully framework came into focus for me and it started to take shape. I've been working on this framework since then, and I was trying to perfect it until now because I was trying to draw from this epiphany that I hit a number of years ago to the times that we're in today and all the things that we're facing professionally and personally. This framework is not a concept, it's a mirror. Leadfully is about leading with intention, compassion, accountability, and courage without separating the drive for excellence from our humanity. Leadfully asks us to engage all of our senses in leadership, for us to show love not as a sentiment, but as action. The love language of leading is what this is. This matters because we're moving from the times of the great resignation era, which is what we knew we were facing during the pandemic, to now, where they're calling it the era of the great detachment. What does that mean? What does that mean? Well, the Gallup data tells us this. 7 out of 10 employees are struggling with the pace of organizational change. We're also hearing from folks that since the pandemic, there are these shifting consumer expectations. About 56% of people feel that expectations are shifting. And then half of employees are experiencing a disconnect between themselves and the missions of their organizations. And then there are all these other issues that they continue to face because what we're now starting to understand is that what worked in the past, the way we led, the way we motivated people, the way we managed expectations, the way we did business, no longer works. So we must lead differently. So let me walk you through the Leadfully framework, where love becomes operational in leading. Love language number 1, using our gift of sight. This is belovedness and being beholden. I see you. Remember Avatar? That's the way they express love. And this is about seeing people beyond their roles, beyond their productivity, beyond their task lists. Love language number 2, using your gift of hearing. I hear you. This is attunement. Hearing, not just listening, changes culture. When people feel heard, they don't shrink, they shine. I had no intention that day of hearing Kwaku until he showed me grace in the middle of his own loss. Love language number 3, our gift of touch. I support you. This is enablement. Leadership support isn't just about physical presence or touch, it's about reach. Because when you grow a person, you're growing an entire ecosystem of caring. And as leaders, we have to see things differently, where we're not just planting seeds or planting trees, we're building forests. Love language number 4, our gift of smell. I've got you. This is reliance and institutional anchoring. And our sense of smell never shuts off because it's our early warning system. Strong leaders sense what's going to be problematic well before it erupts. Love language number 5, using our gift of taste. You belong here. This is mattering. Mattering means feeling valued and understanding how you're adding value. Taste is culture. And belonging determines whether someone feels an environment that they're in is nourishing them or starving them. And then the last one, you got it, that sixth sense, you've got it, that intuition. I understand you. And as leaders, we must develop intuition for people, knowing what they need well before they can even utter the words. When I engaged all of my senses, I saw an opportunity. So back to Kwaku's story. Now, even though we were cutting positions, we had some hard to fill mission critical positions that still needed to be occupied. So I called my colleague in the quality department and I told her that it's probably important for you to meet Kwaku. I think he'll fit into one of your positions. She agreed to meet with him and immediately felt that he was a fit and hired him into the quality department. Now, when he was in that role, a couple years later, he got promoted to director, and then I left the organization. After I left the organization, and as I was preparing for this talk, I realized that I need to find out what happened to Kwaku, because now we're talking about a good 15 years. I called my friend, and I asked her what happened to Kwaku, and she said, Katie, I have 2 bits of good news to share with you. One, I've since retired, and I'm happily living with my family at the beach. 2, when I resigned and moved on, I turned over the department to Kwaku. Kwaku is now the vice president and chief quality officer in that organization. We almost missed out on his brilliance because in my leadership at that time, I forgot how to show love. So I'll close with these words from Senator Raphael Warnock. He said this years ago when he won his election in the state of Georgia, and he said this: to lead the people, you have to love the people. To love the people, you have to know the people. And to know the people, you must walk amongst the people. Ladies and gentlemen, I encourage you to lead fully, love deliberately and intentionally, and as leaders, never ever leave your heart behind, particularly during times like these. Leadfully reminds us that leadership is not a role, it's a responsibility to humanity. Because when we lead fully, with courage, with conscience, and care, we don't just change systems, we change lives for the better. Thank you.